piles on him until he runs off, and Francesca updates her brother on the situation. Their deadbeat dad borrowed $2,000 right before he died, which equates to about $35,000 in 2024 money. And the loan shark is demanding payment by the end of the week. Vito sets out to look for some well-paying work to pay these guys off and links up with Joe just for that. They drive to another location where Vito meets Giuseppe and obtains his discharge papers. They purchase some lockpicks on their way out, and Vito steals himself a brand new car, and then takes it to the shop for some upgrades. Nice. Afterwards, Joe takes Vito to meet Mike, who deals in stolen vehicles and is willing to provide a nice cut. He has to stand idly by while Joe complains about Mike's greasy fingies dirtying up his coat.
Calm down or I'll stick 'em up your ass, you sissy.
I love that. Joe provides abuses to Vito as they enter bomber territory, a lower-level gang that may give him trouble when he commits Grand Theft Auto in their streets. Joe will go back to Mike's and wait for Vito while he punches out some loudmouth fool and caps 3 guys that spot him jacking their ride. He outpaces anyone pursuing him and drives back to Mike, who hands over the cash and gives Vito a head start on paying the loan shark back. He crashes at Joe's and is awoken by his mommy when she calls asking where he's at. Obviously, I'm at Joe's, Ma. She implores him to speak to his father's previous boss, Mr. Papiato, for work, which he does later on that day. We listen unbearably as he eats that meat as loudly as possible and offers Vito $10 for the day to move some boxes. But after just a single one, he decides to bail, mentioning he can make far more with Joe. Joe's name means something around here though, so he's taken back upstairs and after a verification call is tasked with collecting barber fees from the workers downstairs. He roughs up a couple stubborn individuals and takes the money back to this guy who is taking forever to eat this damn steak. Or is that a new one? Afterwards, he finds Joe, who warns Vito they're about to meet Henry Tomasino, Soldato and the Mafia that assigns them separate jobs. Vito is to collect gas stamps from a government building that will fetch a lot of money due to the current gas shortage, so he meets up with the sister of one of their guys. Vito drives Maria to work while she provides intel on how he can get inside the building and where everything is. After dropping her off, he goes across the street, around the back, into an open window, and KOs the 3 guards inside, who won't count as kills since he's clearly just knocking them out. He obtains the key and opens the safe with it after disabling the alarm in the basement. He climbs out the way he came in and takes them back to Henry. Problem is, the stamps have an expiration date of tomorrow. Unexpectedly has to rush out and offload them to gas station attendants around the city who apparently only employ sextuplets. The following morning, Joe leaves a note for Vito to meet him at Freddy's down the street with a piece and some lockpicks. Henry informs them a man borrowed money from them to open a jewelry shop but is slow in paying them back, so they're going to reclaim their investment that night. Joe got the 2 of them disguises and they drive to the mall that night and use the lockpicks to get inside. But they can barely get to stealing before a car drives through the front and some Irishmen spill out looking to get in on the action. They have a mini standoff until cops arrive, and both Joe and Vito book it away from the gunfire. During their escape, Vito guns down 2 of the Irish lads and 11 cops inside and outside on the rooftop. They make it to ground level and escape while the cops are distracted with their arrests. Vito wakes up one morning to a woman in Joe's apartment who is on her way out, but relays a message from Joe to meet him at Freddy's later. Vito goes outside and witnesses a very angry fella rear-end the woman and get in her face. So Vito makes him eat his fists and declines when the woman offers up a slice of paisi. Vito pops into Freddy's where he meets Luca Guarino, who congratulates them on a job well done the other night. He has another job for them, and if they succeed, they'll be given the option of paying a $5,000 initiation fee to be a part of their family. They watch as the big boss slaps Luca around a little bit, and Henry gives them the lowdown on the job. A guy named Sidney Penn is refusing to cut them in on his business, so they're going to go insano mode on him, using an MG42 from across the street. Vito picks it up from a fellow war vet, and brings it to the apartment Henry and Joe are hiding out in. But these morons are basically right up on the windows, so the guys at street level spot them easily and warn Sidney as he pulls up. Vito unleashes hell on the 4 poor saps down below, and then takes the fight to street level before entering the warehouse and gunning down 19 more guys. They corner Sidney, who begs for his life, but when it's clear Henry will not let him live, he sneakily pulls a revolver out and nails Henry in the leg at close range. Vito and Joe riddle the man with lead, leaving him a bloody mess while they pull a severely injured Henry up. Vito fends off the remaining 3 fools and guides Henry to a car, then drives him to a discreet doctor who will treat his leg wound. Henry pays Vito for his services, which gives him just enough doubloons to pay off the loan shark. He drops that off with Francesca and gets some shut-eye at Joe's. But the following day, as soon as he leaves the apartment, some police are waiting to take him in. One of the gas station attendants ratted Vito out, who is now sentenced to 10 years in prison. He doesn't even listen to what this man is saying, though, because by this point, anyone rocking that mustache should be ashamed. Vito is escorted to his new home for the foreseeable future, and after getting some advice from Joe, seeks out a man named Leo Galante inside. But while doing so, that lad O'Neill blames Vito and Joe for his current position and goes fisticuffs. About a minute later, the prison guards break it up and toss Vito into solitary confinement. 2 days later, Galante seeks Vito out and recruits him into his little club Tyler Durden would be stoked to see. He teaches Vito some new moves, and after some discussion, he learns that Henry and Luca were trying to rip him and Joe off with that $5,000 initiation fee. Galante says the families won't like hearing about their little side hustle before Vito's first fight is scheduled. He makes mincemeat out of him, and the second guy he's pitted against. Eventually, his sister comes to visit him with good news and bad news. The good is that she's getting married, but the bad is their ma is sick. Vito advises Francesca to get his leftover cash from Joe and use that to treat their mother and use what's left over as a wedding gift. Sometime later, Vito is forced into a confrontation with the booty warrior.
We can do this the easy way, or the
This is
hard
part of chapter
way.
6, though.
Vito wails on these aggressive horn dogs and gets thrown into solitary confinement again for it, along with a letter bringing news of his
That
mother's
stoop,
passing.
though.
Once
He's
he's taken
defending
out of
himself,
there, he
especially
learns
in the
that
showers
Galante's
there.
prize fighter Pepe, who was scheduled to fight O'Neill, was jumped by his opponent's gang. So Vito is sent in to give O'Neill the same treatment, and winds up putting him to rest after he makes the mistake of pulling a knife on him. The guards could never find out who killed O'Neill, so Vito is treated about as well as one can be treated in the slammer. Galante is due to be released in a few months and tells Vito he'll try to work some magic for him when he's out. Vito spends a total of 6 years behind bars. But as promised, Galante was able to pull some strings and reduce his sentence to get him out early in 1951. The city has changed drastically in the years following World War II, and Vito was
Really?
gifted some cash, a gun, and an apartment by Joe upon his release. He wants Vito to come back that night for a surprise, but Vito surprises Joe with a brand new haircut. What the fuck, man?
that's-
He meets Eddie
that's a
Scarpa of the
glitch.
Falcone Prime family, and they go to a brothel for the night. Eddie gets far too drunk, disrespecting the ladies and himself before they leave. But soon after getting into the car, a foul stench singes the nostrils. This fucking guy Eddie killed a guy 2 days prior and stashed him in the trunk. So they drive out to a secluded... He killed a guy 2 days prior and stashed him in the trunk. So they drive out to a secluded spot to bury the guy. The next morning, Joe wakes Vito up to assist in offloading some cigs. They move locations and eventually get harassed by Billy Barnes and his gang of greasers, who demand payment if they're to do business on their turf. Joe pays with lead, and they chase the others but lose them on the highway. After calling Eddie, he demands payment and retribution, and has them meet with a gang of guys to burn down the greasers' favorite hangout spot along with the frame rate. Afterwards, they drive to the foundry where the guys hole up and a firefight erupts, with Vito taking down the majority of them with 31 total kills that push him into triple-digit numbers. Vito claims one of the hot rods and takes it to the docks for cash, then brings that back to Eddie to pay him back. Vito is woken up in the morning by Eddie, who tells him to meet at the bar with a fast car and a gun. He meets Carlo Falcone for the first time, who quickly departs to make sure his brother Carmine hasn't been pulverized by a Batman. Clemente is looking to make a move on them, and his little bitch boy Luca Guarino has reportedly kidnapped 3 of Falcone's guys, including his accountant. Eddie needs Vito to tail Guarino and confirm if he indeed committed this infraction, and to whack the guy if so. Vito waits for Luca to get into his fancy schmancy car and tails him to the Clemente slaughterhouse. He finds a way inside via
Outside
a
the
sewer
city.
route where a pile of shit is dumped on him.
Yeah, and that's
forcing him to sneak
disgusting.
around this place smelling like a great mighty poo. He locates Falcone's guys who are hung up and being tortured. Oh God, what did he do to you? But Vito's foul stench gives away his position,
Jesus Christ, what is Captain Shitbag here to save the day? Shut the fuck up, Luca.
which allows a big bruiser to sneak up on him for a brawl. Vito drops his gun, but during the fight, one of Falcone's men kicks it across the floor and gives Vito the upper hand, where he shoots the bruiser off screen for a kill. Now with weapons drawn, Vito is forced into taking down more of Luca's goons, netting another 13 kills. Vito and Tony bust down the room Luca is hiding out in, and Tony pummels the little snake. break, telling Vito he intends to pay him back with a long drawn-out death that will end with a meat grinder. So Vito dips out of there and meets Eddie at the bar. He's happy to hear the good news but tells him to get the fuck out and change his clothes now. He heads down the street and trashes his threads, putting on a nice suit with a public masturbator trench coat he takes back to the bar. Him and Joe get
Bad
news
idea.
they're becoming made men in the Falcone family, and Leo Galante is there to congratulate Vito. They go through their free initiation, and what follows is a montage of Joe and Vito living the high life, with Vito getting a house and both of them beating some fools up, but Joe is the only one killing people here. Again, Vito gets woken up by Eddie calling, who needs him down at Joe's apartment ASAP. Clemente is calling a meeting at a hotel downtown with his men, knowing the commission will give the green light on Falcone going to war with Clemente. So Falcone wants to strike hard and fast, and Joe intends to plant a bomb in their meeting room and take out the high-level guys
Yeah.
all at once. They'll use a window washing platform to blend in and trigger the explosive, so when they head out,